So, welcome, Chavonne, today to the podcast. I am so excited to have you on.
I'm excited to be here.
Yes. So, I like to start off the episodes by asking the person I'm interviewing, how is your mental health today? How are you feeling?
Okay, so my mental health is pretty good. I definitely think that I'm coming down with a cold, so I'm a little like not fully myself, but I feel good overall.
A cold at the end of summer, or like whatever you want to call this part of summer, I don't like that for you.
I know. That's what happens when you drink too much on a cruise ship.
Oh yeah, true. Because you've been traveling and you've probably just been around like so many different like people and stuff. So yeah.
Hmm.
All the 6 feet apart rules and covering your mouth are like out the window right now. So,
Yeah, yeah, girl, no mask.
so to get us started today, let's start from my what I like to consider the beginning. Where'd you grow up? Where'd you grow up? Where'd you go to school? What did you think your career would be when you were younger, like let's say high school age?
Wow. Okay, so where did I grow up? I'm from Queens, New York, specifically St. Albans, which is a town in Jamaica, Queens. And I went to school. I went to City College in New York in Harlem. So I'm a like real New York girl, born and raised, did all the things here. And when I was a kid, I wanted to be an astronaut because I was obsessed with Macy Jemison. She's like one of the first Black women that went to space, and she looks like me. And I was like, oh, I want to be an astronaut. And then I wanted to be an Air Force pilot. And then after that, I didn't really know what I wanted to do.
Okay, so you definitely like space and heights and being in the air. So that, but you do nothing in that realm now. Okay.
No, not at all.
So you went to City College. What was your major while you were there?
So, City College, I majored in English literature and then I minored in journalism. And I thought that I was going to be a teacher after college, which I kind of did like a brief stint in Teach for America, but I knew that it wasn't for me. So I quit on the second day of school.
Are you serious?
Yes. One thing you should know about me is like as soon as I know in my spirit that something is not for me, I quit and I
Oh
move.
my God. Wait, sorry, go ahead. What were you gonna say?
No, I quit and then I move on.
You sound like a friend that I used to like, we used to work together and she worked at CVS. She said she was there for one night and she just never went back. She was like, I just knew this wasn't for me. I was like, what?
Yeah.
So okay. Do you have a Caribbean background or no?
No, I'm not. I'm Black American. My
Black
family's
American.
from the South.
Okay, so how does your family react to like your moments of like you quit the second day of school and it's like, okay, this is Chavonne doing Chavonne.
You know what? How do they react? I think they just go with the flow because I think that one thing they know about me is that when I am locked into something, I'm so fully locked in and dedicated to it that like I can only focus on that. And that's just like I think that's just how my energy works. It's either I'm all in or I'm just like, no, I don't want to do this no more. And I just switch to the next thing.
Okay. Oh gosh, I'm glad that you have like that support because wow. Okay, so you quit being a teacher after the second day on the job. It just wasn't for you, which I respect that. What was your next step after that?
Okay,
At
so
least
let's
career
see.
wise.
Yeah, so just for context, I was in Teach for America. I taught all summer in West
Oh.
Philadelphia. And then they moved me to Baltimore. And I was a high school teacher in Baltimore City for 2 days. Okay. It was Baltimore. It was a lot. I was 22 years old. I was like, I cannot be all the things. I'm still going through my own like identity crisis. This is not for me. But after that, I moved back into the advertising industry. So I worked in advertising for like 3 years, like fresh out of college. Then I was like, oh, I should probably do something with my major, English Lit. So I was like, oh, I'll go become a teacher. Got into Teach for America, did that. I was like, nope, I don't want to be a high school teacher. And then I was like, okay, I want to go back into advertising because they're not using like Microsoft XP. They're actually like up to date with the tech and I can be more creative and I can help more people.
Wait, so were you using Microsoft XP when you were a teacher or when you were at your previous ad like job?
When I was a teacher and it
When
was
you
like the year
oh
2030,
yeah.
2013, I'm like, how are you using Microsoft XP in
Yeah.
2013?
There's just certain fields I feel like, especially government related fields, like they're just still back in like the 1900s, and for some reason they just haven't like upgraded with the times.
Yeah, and imagine if I was like living that life. That would just set me back. In my opinion, it would set me back skill wise.
No, yeah, I definitely agree. I definitely agree. Because also, I think like even like the post office, they just got Apple Pay now. So it's like certain industries, they're just like behind in certain areas. So I definitely,
Yeah,
so it's more of a tech thing. You're just like, this is gonna make me like more hours on the job trying to get the job done.
exactly. I always want to like if I'm going to do a job, I want to learn skills that are going to take me further in
Further.
life, and I
Yeah.
just felt like no, this is not it.
You'll just be stagnant and just, okay, I'm just getting a job done. I definitely, now that you explained it, I definitely get that. So, okay, you majored in journalism, then you went to advertising. When you were in college, did your school, 'cause when I majored in PR, and so in my college, it was like journalism, advertising, I think telecom, like all in one. Was that similar for you in your college, or how did you make the jump to advertising?
Yeah, that's a funny story. So they definitely had an advertising PR undergrad program, but I was not a part of it. I did this thing called the Creative Boot Camp where they take students from the CUNY system and they put us in teams, and then we have to come up with an advertising campaign for an ad agency, and we're competing for an internship. So basically, my team, we came in second place. I didn't win the internship, but I did win a free membership to the club that like hosted the event. And then I just basically started going to all their like $2 happy hours and connecting with all of the folks who worked at the company that was hosting it. And then eventually there was like an education and diversity coordinator position that opened up, and I got it. And it was great because I got to go to London, I got to go to Texas while I was still in college. And I was helping creative students get into the advertising industry. So it was really cool. It was a
That's
cool like first job out of college.
Yeah, that's really good. So, okay, that's good. How long were you there for?
I did that for about 4 years.
4 years. And then
Yeah,
so you were there, you went to college, did that for 4 years post college, and then you went to teaching for a short stint. So what
yeah.
caused you to want to switch gears from like advertising to teaching?
Because that job was like freelance, and I don't know why, but like I felt like it was so niche, and it was like a lot of event production, and there was like no real career path with it. So I was like, oh, I need to do something that's more, like what your parents tell you you should do. You go to law school, you go to med school, you become a teacher, right? So I was like, oh, this is the path that I need to take. Um, and then I realized like I'm not built that way. I don't actually think I'm built to fit into those boxes.
Yeah, I definitely understand that because I think probably for you, and even now because I'm freelancing now, it's like freelancing, it's hard to explain to people because if you can't show them a clear path of what your next steps are, they're just like, well, what are you doing next? And it's like, I know but I don't know. So it's like I'm working
Exactly.
towards this, but I'm also waiting to see what comes from it. And until you have something concrete to show them, like, look at what I was able to accomplish. And even when you show them their accomplishments, they're still like, okay, but what's next? So like, what are you doing next? It's hard with freelancing, but
Yeah.
yeah, I definitely can see why you went back to teaching because it's like, okay, let me just do something that people will understand, and it'll just be understood. So you worked at the job for 4 years, then you went to
Mhm.
teaching, you quit, and then you went back to advertising. So
Exactly.
at this first you started off freelancing and advertising. At this point, did you move to in-house or agency? What was your next path?
Yeah. I went agency side, so I worked at this company called McCann. They're known for like Coca-Cola and stuff, and I was a diversity and inclusion manager because I didn't know that diversity and inclusion was like an actual pathway. So I did that, and then I switched over to learning and development because the thing is that like regardless of like what job I do, my core skill is that I've always been a teacher. Like I've always been able to take information or just learn a new skill and then teach other people with ease. So that's been like the common thread that's connected everything that I've ever done in my career and in my business.
That makes sense. Yeah, because with Grillz and Granola, which we'll get more into eventually, that's also what you do. You have to teach people a skill or whatever the case may be.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
now you're at the agency job, you're working. First you said you started off in so more so diversity and inclusion. I would say somewhat, I guess you consider that social impact. Then you switched over to learning.
Mhm.
How long were you at McCann and what was your time there like? Because to my understanding, McCann is a pretty big agency, as you just said, Coca-Cola. How were you managing like your mental health while being there?
Yeah, so there was a lot happening when I was at McCann. I was at McCann for about 4 years. And during that time, I had gone through a divorce because I had married my college sweetheart. So I was married from like 22 to 26. And then also, that was around the time that I started Grillz and Granola. And that was because my mental health was so poor that like the only thing that made me feel good was going to the gym. Yeah.
I definitely can somewhat attest to that. At a low point in my life was when I started working out, and that was the only thing that made me like feel good about myself. So I'm so sorry to hear that you went through the divorce, but it was all part of the journey to get you to where you are now. You're going through the divorce and you turn to working out. What made you turn to working out versus like, some people pick up like a crocheting hobby, some people like do other things. Why was it working out? Were you already working out previously, or what led to that?
Yeah, I was working out previously, but I don't think I was doing it consistently. And I always played sports when I was in high school. I played soccer and basketball. So, like, in my mind, I was like, let me return to all the things that I used to do when I was younger that make me happy when life was just, like way more simple. Um, and the thing is that, like, I was on the weekends, I was out partying because I wanted to like feel better and I wanted to get chose, right? Because I think that that's just what women do. It's like we're always either trying to have like revenge body or we're trying to get chose by somebody else. So that was kind of like what my thinking was, but after a while like I couldn't go out and drink as much because alcohol is a depressant and it makes my mental health worse and I've always struggled with depression. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go to the gym. And this is when Drake and Future dropped that What a Time to Be Alive mixtape, and I was like, this is just getting me through. This is my vibe. This is where I'm at in life. It's like fuck everything. I'm just trying to be right now.
I still remember being in college when that album dropped out and like driving to school or driving to work and just like blasting the songs. I still remember the feeling of that. And it's so cliche. You know how people say sometimes I wish I could go back to the first time I heard this song or this album? Like that album was
Yeah.
one of those albums.
Yeah.
So I think like going back, you went through your divorce, you turned to working out. You were already doing it before, but you turned into something more serious where you were like, okay, this is going to be what I'm going to focus on when I'm not working. This will be like my focus path. Which it's so funny you say the part where you said, I returned to all the things that made me happy because I think like in self-care, sometimes like you have like a regimen, but then sometimes depending on what's going on in your life, you have to return to things that like, bring you joy or like recharge you. Um, so you turn to working out, trap music. It was kind of like I think, oh, also another point I wanted to make. I think like being that I'm closing out my 20s and I'm getting ready to
Mhm.
jump into my 30s, I think I wish in America we did more of like gap years because I think like what you went through is partly what I went through, where it's like you're told to like you got to go to a job and work there for 30 years. You need to be married. You need to be having kids at these like different milestones in life. And it sounds like you were just like exploring who you are and finding who is Chavonne and what does Chavonne like. And through that time, you realize this college sweetheart isn't who I want to be with, or this
Yeah.
job isn't what I want. And you were very clear about your boundaries and what things you're willing to put up with versus not. So it just sounded like you were going through what your
So
20s are. So yeah.
thank you. I affirm that because like when I was in it, it didn't feel that way. It actually
Mm,
just felt like I was a failure. Like, oh, you did everything right. You got the job, you got the
no.
husband,
Yeah.
and like it just wasn't enough. I wasn't happy. Oh,
Yeah. You were going through a time where you were just like rediscovering yourself and figuring out who you are and what you want to be. And like I said earlier, I feel like we in America, we should really impose a gap year where you can take that time to explore yourself because I think that Americans really push this agenda of you have to like go to school, you have to get a job, you gotta like, have a family, have
mhm.
kids, whatever the case may be. Um, but you did the experience of this is what I should be doing. And I think in my opinion, there's no right or wrong. It's whatever works best for you. I just
Mhm.
think that now with the age of social media, there's a lot of like, oh, this person's doing this person's doing that, I have to keep up with the Joneses, but it's really just doing what feels right to you. um so you got a divorce, you're working at McCann, and you're trying to find ways to, like, really just get yourself back to who Chavonne is, what makes Chavonne happy. So you turn to working out. You were loving trap music. What a Time to Be Alive just came out. Which, while
Yeah.
we're on the subject, what was your favorite song from that album?
Digital Dash.
Okay, yeah, I could feel that. I could feel that. So, What a Time to Be Alive came out. Digital Dash is like your song. What made you then turn to like, if this is helping me, I need to do this for other women that look like me?
Yeah, so I think what happened was like I went to a yoga class and I was in child pose, and the instructor like singled me out and was basically telling me that like I wasn't in child pose the right way. But the thing is that I have hips and a booty, so like naturally my back is not going to go as low and as flat as everyone else's because there's just a little bit more to love down there. And it bothered me. And then the other thing was that I was going to Lucio Roberts, and I was just getting bored with the classes that they had. So I was like, oh, I'm taking all these aerobic classes already. Like what can I do with trap music? And then it clicked and I was like, oh, trap aerobics, like I could do something with this. And then I started taking it extra serious. And then I got certified as a group fitness instructor. And then I spent like 9 months building out the class, the business, the branding, like everything. I had a project plan. Like this was like something that I worked on until like 3 o'clock in the morning, like every single night after I get off work. Yeah. And
That's
that's what
how
I was saying. When I'm locked in, I'm locked in.
And I was gonna say, I think that's how you know when like you're following your purpose or something that you're meant to be doing, is those moments when it's like you don't want to go to bed because like living is better than like sleeping because you're doing something that you're passionate about.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm really sorry that the instructor said that. I like, in classes I have today, a lot of instructors say do what feels comfortable. And you could have had like, aside from you like being a naturally, like you have like hips like you said, and you have more shape. I think like also you never know if maybe you had like you hurt your hip or something, like that was the only reason why you could go far down. So I'm really just
Yeah.
surprised that she like did that. So it, either way, it happened for a reason, because it brought you forth to like, okay, I need to make a space where people who have a body like mine and who want to be in spaces like this but may not feel comfortable because they're being told that they're not doing a pose correctly. um Let me build that for them. So you're up at 3 a.m, you're trying to like get it started. What led you to finally say, okay, it's time to like release the clip and like have my first event?
Um, what led me to do that? I think it's because I had finally like created a full like 45-minute class. And the way that I rolled it out, because I get when I'm into something, like I literally cannot stop. Um, I was inspired by Beyonce. Like Beyonce records herself and she watches her performances. So I remember it was June 4th, 2016. I booked the studio like 5 different times and I hit up all my friends and I basically said, I'm starting a business. I'm starting this new workout and I would love if you came and just like join me so that I can figure out how to perfect it. So I had a GoPro and I put it on the mirror and I taught the class 5 times and I watched every single class I taught. And that's when I was like, okay, so people learn audio kinesthetically, right? So it's like, okay, I need to do hand gestures, but I also need to give verbal cues because that's how people learn information, and that comes from the learning background. Um, I also like saw when I was doing certain movements and they couldn't follow me. I also was looking at people's faces to see if I was being a bit too rigorous in some parts of the workout. So I studied all of that, and then I changed the class completely, and then from there, I was like, okay, I feel like I've perfected this. It's time that we like, we're going to put this on Eventbrite. We're going to do this.
Yes. I love that. You and Beyonce inspired me. Maybe I should start doing that more, like recording myself and just like looking back on it. Cause I think even now with like my podcast, me listening to myself, I'm like, okay, I want to change this or like do this better or make this transition like that. That is like really beautiful. I love that transition to the start for you. Aside from you perfecting the class, how did you come up with the name Grillz and Granola?
That was inspired from a friend of mine who just like was like, "Oh, you should call it Grills and Granola." And I was like, "But it needs to mean something." So then I was like, okay, grills, because my family, they're from the South and they love to barbecue, right? And like grills burn food, but also gangsta grills from hip hop. And then granola, I was like, well, we could say granola because I'm from Jamaica, Queens, and it's a food desert to some extent. And granola is like one of the only healthy things that you can find in a corner store, besides like a banana or apple. So it's like it's about accessibility. It's also about hip hop and culture. And I was like, this, and it just sounds catchy. So like, let's roll with it.
That that is a beautiful layered background, and it definitely impacts to everything that I think Grills and Granolas like represents. And I think for me, Grills, I also think of Nelly like with the song Grills, because that's also like a trap
Grillz
song, I guess.
and Granola.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's also like a trap song. So now you're at the point of like, okay, it's time to like start. How was that first session, if you can remember? How was that first like session and workout you did?
It was nerve-wracking. Like my speaker wasn't loud enough. I feel like maybe 7 or 8 people showed up and they were all my friends. And I don't know. It's like for me, something that would always happen when even when I played sports, like I would always get this wave of anxiety and I'd always have to go to the bathroom before I get on the court or I get on the field. And it was the same thing there. I was like, oh, I have to go to the bathroom. My anxiety's like killing me. But once it was done, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe that this idea from my brain is now in the world and people are experiencing it with their 5 senses. And it was just a thought like a year ago. It's crazy.
I completely understand what you're saying, because I think it's the vulnerability of like, releasing like your baby out into the world for like, it's that quote that everyone says, I'm an artist, but I'm sensitive about my shit. It's like when it's just yours and you keep it to yourself, you can like enjoy it, but then once you release it, it's open to constructive criticism from the world. So it's like
Mhm.
it's the anxiety of, okay, I'm doing this in front of a bunch of people, and then what do people think? Will it grow? Where will it go from here? Will it bring me back the success that I want?
Yeah.
So you did the first event, but you kept going. You didn't stop, obviously, because you
Nope.
lasted for close to over 5 years. So
Yeah.
what kept pushing you to keep going, and just not letting that first class discourage you from stopping?
Well, one, I had like people that I partnered with that really helped me with it. So like one of my childhood friends, Fiona, she was a part of the process of me like coming up with choreo, and we'd like come up with choreo in my grandmother's backyard. And then later I brought in an official business partner, which is my business partner, Jenny Mack, who's also still one of my really good friends today. And I think that like by pulling in people who have a different skill set from me, it actually motivates me and pushes me. Like I hate being the smartest person in the room. I hate being the person that has all the answers because that doesn't help me grow. But they motivated me. And like honestly, what I've never said is that like the entire time that I was running this business, I was still battling depression. Still. The entire time. And still like having moments of like self-doubt and still like wondering like was it worth me putting all this energy into this? Because, I was running a business and I was doing this from what, 26 to like 32? Because we just dissolved the business in May of last year. And like, it's a lot of sacrifice. It's a sacrifice to my personal life, it's a sacrifice to friendships, to family. Like, and I'm also working full time. So like I always was like wondering like was it worth it? Should I have been putting my energy into other things like relationships? And all that stuff would like compound and like it would eat me up at night. But then at the same time all these like magical things would happen. Like we have a small documentary featured created by Google Small Business. I'm in Forbes. I did stuff with BET. Like I never thought I would do any of these
Target
things.
collab, I saw you also
Oh
did.
yeah, and I was a Target model and I did some modeling for Adidas. Like I never thought any of those things would happen. That wasn't even a part of the vision when I started the company. So like those are like the whispers from the universe to keep going, but like when I'm not paying attention to those things, it was just like I was not feeling good at the end of the day. Yeah.
That's actually ironic that you say that, because I had a question for later on, asking, working in wellness slash mental health, you have to manage your own mental health. How do you manage your own mental health while trying to uplift others? It's a hard battle, because it's like it's like, which is why the podcast is called Pour Into My Cup. You have to pour into yours before you can pour into others. So
Yeah.
it's that balance of how do I do that while still being an uplifting light for someone else when it may be one of your lowest days ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I would flip the switch, because at the end of the day, teaching fitness classes, it's not just about the fitness class. It's a combination of science and performance art, is what I tell people. And like what people are really paying for is your energy. And for me, even on the days when I felt like crap, I will flip that switch and just be like, all right, you got to show up as bright, bubbly Chavonne today, even though you don't feel like it, because people are paying for this.
Yeah, which can be hard for some. I think with the way the world is going in certain fields, some people don't know how to understand that not every day is going to be 100% perfect. Like some days you're going to be only at 25% yourself, but you still have to show up and give like it your all. Um
Yeah.
Switching is for a quick second off of Grillz and Granola, I did see where okay, so as you know, we're living in a time where like quiet quitting is a thing, and there's also like the Great Resignation that's on the rise. I saw that you said in either like an interview, I believe you said you had to learn how to detach yourself from your job and let your purpose shine through. Or maybe like that's like how they like rewrote wrote it. How did you learn that in this time where you're like building Grillz and Granola, but you're also working at McCann and also I'm assuming still going through your divorce as well and just finding out how do you transition from the person that I was college sweethearts with that basically you dated through your whole 20s and now you're trying to discover who you are outside of that person while working, being a mother, being not a mother, but being a
Yeah.
daughter or being a friend. How are you like able to detach yourself and just focus on your purpose?
Um, I think, how did I detach myself? And I'm trying to think back, like, what was I doing? Um, well, one, I think for me, how like purpose and motivation shows up, it feels like a Facebook poke. I don't know if you remember when Facebook had the poke option and somebody would just poke you and it's just like, what do you want me to do with this? But it's just still there. It's like omnipresent. So like that's what it feels like for me. And like me working on the business was a Facebook poke and it was just poking away. And I was like, if I don't give this thing energy or attention, this is not going to stop. So that's kind of what motivated me. I don't know if I could say I fully detached myself, but it was just more like the most important thing that you have is like your attention. Like everyone thinks that time is the most valuable thing, but it's really your attention because attention consumes time. So like for me, I'm like, I want to give my attention to something that is going to push me past my limits, but also is going to make me learn how to trust myself. And I think that running a business and watching it grow into something that goes beyond what you imagine is how you build trust within yourself. So all of the other things that was happening in my life started to feel like obsolete because I was way more immersed in like the future version of myself than the past one.
I think I really needed to hear that for myself.
Oh,
Wow. But I do love the analogy of the Facebook poke because I get that. I took a break from this podcast and now I'm coming back. And I think like during that time of taking a break, it's still like that poke of like the business idea is just on your head and it's like it's not going to stop. So you might as well just do something about it, which is moving forward with it, which is what you did with Grillz and Granola. Like it wasn't stopping. You were like, well, I might as well. This is the one thing that is bringing me positivity in my life right now. So I might as well just move forward with it. So
yeah.
going back to Grillz and Granola, you started the business and you said 2016, if I'm not mistaken, right? So you're going 4 years strong with the business, and then 2020, which we all know, the great 2020, the pandemic happened. Which at a time for a lot of people, it started off being like a confusing state because we didn't know what it was. Like nobody knew what we were going through. We were all going through this for the first time together. And hopefully it'll be the last time we ever have to go through something like that
I
again.
listen, knock on wood.
What? But how were you able to still manage community during the time of the pandemic?
Yeah, so I think at that time, when the pandemic happened, I had actually quit my job and I was working on the business full time. And how we managed community was that like we just said, all right, well, the gyms are closed. We can't rent the studio anymore. So like we're just gonna have to shift this thing and turn it into online classes. And what was dope about that was like, again, using the insight from my professional career in learning and development, I know that like if you're going to do a virtual program, it needs to be shorter because people's attention spans, you can't do like an hour long program through Zoom. Like it doesn't work. Like people tap out after a while. So what we did was we shifted it. We made 25-minute classes. And we just scaled and we added a whole nother layer. So it turned into like a whole workout regimen where it was like some days were for legs, other days were arms, other days were full body. Then we had 21-day challenges. Then we would meditate at the end of every class because we felt that people needed that. And then we started doing power walks together when we could get outside. So it was kind of just like an opportunity to change the way that you view what a community could be and how you connect with people through screens.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think from a business standpoint, you just obviously had to learn how to like be on your toes at all time and just learning how to like be I hope I'm saying this analogy right. This flight attendant I follow, she said like the airline she works with, they say be a tree, like be planted in like what you're doing, but be able to like, maneuver through the different shifts and like waves that
Mhm.
happen in life. So I think for you, you were planted in, I'm still gonna continue Grillz and Granola, but how am I gonna like advance this but make this something where people can still get something out of it and they feel like they're still getting their money's worth.
Yeah. And then also, that was an opportunity for me to make it socially impactful because remember, George Floyd happens. And then when I tell you no one showed up to class when that happened, then it was Ahmaud Arbery, then it was Breonna Taylor. And like every time that those incidents were happening, we would see this wild drop in attendance. And I was like, okay, well, what can I do with this? Like, what do I do? So what we ended up doing was using some of the proceeds from the classes because business actually scaled. Like we actually surpassed our revenue from all of 2020 in the first quarter of 2021. We surpassed our revenue for the full year. So the business was booming. And it was because one, I had won over $50,000 in grants. So I was able to hire for instructors and like invest more in the infrastructure and operations. And then we did this thing called Feel Better, where we partner with over 7 therapists across the country, and we hosted different mental health like group coaching sessions for over 400 people in the BIPOC community. And I think that the pandemic showed me that like this is bigger than business. It's really about like how can you positively impact people in a way that actually matters to them. Like how do you actually fulfill a need instead of just doing something that's a good idea? Yeah.
No, yeah, that I definitely can relate to that. I think that's like one of my challenges that I'm going through as a business owner. It's like I do think this podcast can be impactful, but it's me figuring out ways to how can I measure it to make sure it's impacting people. And I'm trying not to get too concrete in what I'm doing because I want the community to be able to tell me what they want from me out of this and to be able to like, maneuver to that and serve them at my full capacity. So that's definitely like important to think of is I think like also people just say like your business isn't about you, it's about the community of people that come to your business. They're the ones who make the business what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, like a business is not successful unless it is actually fulfilling a need or a want. And wants and needs change, just like your wants and needs change as you evolve as a human being. So like using social listening and actually paying attention to your customer base is what makes a lot of businesses successful. The ones that are flexible, those are the most successful businesses.
I definitely agree. So going back a little bit before the pandemic, you had been doing the business for 4 years. Over
Mhm.
those 4 years, what do you think were some of like the highlights of it to keep you pushing through and just going until you got to that point of 2020?
Oh, the highlights. There's so many. The highlights. Wow, it feels like a blur right now, but let's see. I think one big highlight was the Google documentary that we did. It was just wild that Google reaches out to us and they're just like, we want to know how you use the internet to like, have a community and a business. So that was cool. Another highlight was definitely the Target campaign. Uh, just because I was like, oh, me, a fitness model, someone who was like a nerd in school and was bullied, I got selected for this opportunity. That's wild. And then I think the other highlight and what really kept me pushing was like seeing the class sizes grow and then having like seeing regulars and like really befriending these folks. Like that was what kept me pushing because I've never viewed myself as someone who's like a community organizer until I started the business. And I was like, wait, I can bring people together and I can make new friends and all of these beautiful Black women are working out with me and believing in me and trusting in me, and that's wild.
That's all good. So I think this question is like a self-ask question for myself. Not saying that I'm like in it for like those moments of like the Google or the Target. I'm definitely in it for like the community moments. But if those other moments happen, hey, I'm happy for it. But how did you stay motivated even when the bigger moments weren't happening? Because I think sometimes people look at other businesses or like their competitors and say, oh, well, this person's getting this or this person's getting that. Why isn't it
Yeah.
happening for me? How did you stay motivated to keep pushing and like remembering what the greater good of the business was?
Okay, so I would say I wasn't motivated. It's just I'm this is actually something that's like still I realize this is one of my superpowers is that I don't work off of motivation. I work off of discipline. So like for me, once I commit to something, even on the moments when like you only had two people come to class, right? I'm still gonna show up because I'm disciplined and now it's like it's ingrained in me on autopilot that I have to show up. And I just feel like I felt that if I were to quit and if I don't take this seriously, right? Because this is my idea, it's something I believe in, it's something I dreamed up. If I were to not show up because two people didn't show up, I mean, I feel like that says a lot about me. It says to me that like I can't be in the trenches. And it's like if you can't be in the trenches, do you even deserve to be on the rooftop? Like really, will you value the rooftop view if you were not in the trenches? I don't know. So but it's really discipline. Like that's something that I got because my dad was in the army. So like I'm really good at like developing new habits and just saying, all right, we're gonna put this one on autopilot.
Yeah, I think it's also consistency. So consistency and discipline, like which go hand in hand.
Yeah,
And it's to your point, like in my own like fitness life, there's days that I don't want to go to the gym, but I'm like, if I don't go, there's no progress made. So it's the days that you don't feel like showing up are the days that are the most important. So even for yourself
exactly.
in business and even for myself in business or anyone that may be listening, it's those days when like you just don't feel like doing it. Like there may be nothing wrong. You're just it's a feeling thing. It put the feelings aside and just keep pushing through.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I learned. But also just having surrounded myself with people who were always cheering for me, even when things weren't going well.
Yeah,
That also helped a lot.
that's very important. The community you have around you, which is something I'm learning right now. It's all about the community. So going back, you are in the pandemic, you just won a lot of grants, you are in a state where you're trying to like figure out how to reprogram the business to fit into this virtual world that we're living in through COVID. You figured that out. We're going through Black Lives Matter movement, where a lot of people, as you said, have unfortunately passed away due to police brutality and other things that happened during that time. So you're giving back and you're just making a time for people to have a social impact, but also do something to help with their mental health and things as well. We're coming out of, I guess at this time, what we can consider the pandemic, where it's like 2021. We're still in it, but it's like that confusing state of, are we still
Hmm.
in the pandemic? Are we not? People are saying you got to go back to work, but you don't, but you do. Um, what were your thoughts then of the business at that time? Like what I'm trying to really get to is what led to the decision of this is the deciding factor that we need to close Grillz and Granola.
Yeah. So I think there were a few things. One, even though we had exceeded revenue goals I'd say by the end of 2021, the world slowly started to open back up again. And like people really craved being in gym and in-person stuff. And like And just from a business perspective, like there was more overhead to rent out a studio, obviously, than to like just do it on Zoom. And we saw attendance drop. So like I had to be honest with myself to ask myself, like, do I have the energy to pivot once again? Having done this for by this at this point, like 6 years now, do I have the energy to keep going? Um, in addition to that, I had lost my grandfather, so like my family really needed me. And that was like a moment when like up until this point, like I had the privilege of putting most of my energy into my business and into like myself. And like this was the first time where like people actually needed me and they needed all like most of me. So when all those things happened, so between the fact that like revenue was dropping, I just frankly was burnt out. My business partner Jenny was also burnt out. She has lupus and she was having a lot of flare-ups. And then I was evolving as a person. Like I had evolved past the business. Like the business itself, like the brand is so much, a lot of it is attached to my identity, but I was changing as a person. And like honestly, I stopped listening to trap music outside of me teaching the classes. I was like, I can't do this anymore. So I decided it was very hard. Like when I tell you I cried for months and I sat on the idea of closing the business for at least 6 months until I actually said, no, we have to do this. Um, I was just like, if you want things that you never had, you got to do things that you've never done. And I've always believed more in the future version of myself than the current one. So I was like, nah, there's a future version of me that I haven't met yet. But I don't even have time and space to discover who she is because I'm bogged down with all these responsibilities between this business and my family, and also trying to take care of my mental health and preserve myself. So I was like, you know what? I trust God. It could all go away. Let it all go.
Oh my God, that was wow. That is a hard decision to make, especially something that's pretty much grown with you. And I think like what started the business and what helped you to get out of that phase, it's like, okay, it's time to make that shift. Wow. That was sorry, I'm still like speechless. Okay. So this the decision to shut down the business has come into conversation. You were crying about it. You were obviously like really just praying to see like, is this the right thing that I'm doing? You're on a high, I feel like in your business. You won all these grants, you're like, you're making the most money your business has made, like, and then it's like, okay, it's coming to an end. But it was all because you evolved, as you said. Like you weren't the same person that you were when you started the business. And I think the business has served what it needed to serve, what it needed to serve. And I think also going back to you saying like you were at a point where you were being a teacher, I think like in our age group, in contrast to our parents' age group, we aren't we're still in the process of learning that we can evolve in careers, that we don't have to stay at the same job for 30 years. Because I think to a lot of people, it's like, why would you leave? Like your business is doing the best the best it's done. You're making so much money. Like just keep this for the rest of your life.
Mhm.
And I think you were met with, I don't have to stay here. Like I can evolve and know that there's something greater out there for me. Which I think is just a beautiful thing and just something that I'm like hustling with in my own personal life. Um, with that. So I'm sorry, that was just really beautiful. So how did you and your business partner, even though I know you said that she has lupus and she was having flare-ups, how did you guys identify we're burnt out and we're not serving our community the way that they need to be served?
I think that we just have honest conversations with each other. Like one thing that is so special about our business partnership is that like one, we are genuinely friends. Like we genuinely talk all the time, but we're also like ridiculously respectful and honest with each other about where we're at. And we do like a check-in with each other all the time. Like, how are you really feeling? How are you really feeling? And she would just say, like, we're doing all this work. We're busting our butts to get all these people in classes and stuff like that. And at the end of the day, we're not getting paid what we imagine we want to get paid at this point. And like we're both just exhausted. Like at the end of the day, like it was just like, I'm tired. I'm so tired. I'm so tired. I just don't want to do anything. I just want to lay down. Not to mention every time you're working out, you're putting your body at risk. You're literally putting trauma on your body every time you work out. And that starts to wear down on me. All that jumping, all of that, like my knees were starting to get jacked up. I don't know. It just became a moment where just having an honest conversation about like where you're at, how you're feeling, knowing that like the burnout was starting to turn into like depression. And then also like asking yourself like, are you doing this because you know that your community expects more from you, or are you doing this because you love it? And once I stopped loving it, I was like, if I don't love it, I'm not gonna, my energy, the energy that's going into it is not gonna be pure. You know? I don't know. And then another thing too, it's just like just how I view humans, right? Like we're all plants at the end of the day. And when it comes to plants, every no one is always going to be in their prime for the entirety of their lives, right? Like every plant blooms and then it dies and then you water it again and it blooms again, right? And it just keeps on evolving. So it's like you have infinite opportunities in this lifetime to reinvent yourself. And I had to honor the fact that I got 6 years to like bloom and be alive. So it's like, oh, okay, now it's my new season where I'm just watering my plants and my trees, and I'll grow and become whatever else, whatever the next evolution of life is for me. It's just like music artists. Like we remember when Rihanna was in her red hair phase, that she had the short hair, that she had the faux hawk, right? Like we're artists. We're artists. We get to invent ourselves over and over again. And I think that the people who have those jobs that are like regular, like lawyer, teacher, doctor, they don't fully understand that, but that's what life is about.
And I think if we tap into Rihanna, she also got a chance to like start Savage X Fenty. She also did like Fenty Beauty. Now she's a mom. Like she's been able to evolve into like all these different things that even if you listen to her interviews, she said that she's wanted to do all of them. And I think
Yeah.
like I know there are a lot of mixed feelings about her song on Black
The Lion
Panther.
King. Oh
No,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, Black
Oh, I
Panther.
know exactly which one you're
But
talking about.
I think people have to understand it wasn't going to be what you thought it was going to be because I think like it was a purpose for what her song was to serve. But if you really listen to the song and her vocals, you can hear the growth in her vocals,
Yeah.
like that rest that she's been able to get. And who knows, she's probably been recording an album, we just don't know it. But you can hear like the growth in her vocals. So I think if she does decide to come back to music, who she is when she comes back will be just a different person and a different like growth in it that I hope people realize because that's what Beyonce basically has done. Like if you listen to her first album to now, it's just Beyonce is more prevalent in our face with like her growths about different like her music career. But if you look at Beyonce's like growth, like each album is telling a different story about where she is in life. So I think
Yeah.
having that, like you said, like doctors and lawyers and other more stable careers, I guess people would say, you have that growth, but you can't really because to your point of the Microsoft X15 or whatever you said at the beginning, like
Yes, but yeah.
you're you're stuck in that one phase and you can only grow so much, which you automatically saw when you were a teacher that second day. This isn't going to work for me. I need to evolve more. I need to grow more. I need to be pushed more.
Yeah, we're not we as humans and us pretty much all the other living things on this planet are not meant to stay the same for the rest of our lives. Like that's just not how the universe works. Everything changes.
And you
So
shouldn't want to stay the same either. You should want to evolve.
yeah, I mean, some people don't, you know, some people are scared to evolve, but like I embrace that now. I know this is not my last business. I'm sure I'm gonna open another one, but like I also need time to like fully live my life and be present and connect the dots as to like what comes next for me.
And speaking of you wanting to open up your own business, I did read that you said, hold on. Oh my God, sorry. Something is in my eye. I'm just having an eye moment right now. You said that you want to build the first globally recognized, fully franchisable corporation owned by a woman of color, putting that into the universe for you. Is that something that you still want to do, or as you've evolved over the years, has that changed for you?
Ooh, I definitely think I still want to do something to that scale. I'm trying to figure out what that's actually going to look like. So right now I'm in grad school. I was studying to become a therapist for creative people. And then again, I'm the queen of quitting things that don't fit for me. So like I was in grad school for a year and then I was like, I don't want to be a therapist. Like I have a gazillion and one feelings. I can hold space for people. I have ridiculous amount of empathy, but I can't see myself doing this every single day. So now I'm actually studying organizational psychology, organizational and industrial psychology, and that is using psychology to impact large scale groups of people and companies and organizations, all the things. So, I mean, I'm just about to start later on this month, but like I want to use that insight to figure out how I can make an impact on people. So it's coming. Things are coming together. I'm also a DEI manager at Lululemon, so I'm still in the wellness space. And so I'm just like, I'm living life right now and I'm connecting dots, and I'm sure that like the next thing will come.
No, that so just to make sure I understand. So you said I took notes. You said you're doing organizational and industrial psychology.
Yeah.
And it said it would affect large groups of people. So for example, would it be like, for example, you guys, I guess, help like Black people in like underdeveloped communities type of thing, if that's something you wanted to do? Or am I like going in the wrong field with this?
Yeah. So it's more like, say you started a company, you were an entrepreneur, you started a company, and your company's doing really well and you want to hire new people. How would you know who to hire? What would their responsibilities be? I could work with you to actually figure out how to do that from a people and a psychological perspective. How do you motivate people to do a good job in their jobs? Um, how do you measure, how do you train people, right? Like as a company evolves, how do you actually train people and give them the skills they need to evolve with you? So like that's kind of what organizational industrial psychology encompasses. But knowing me, it's just information. And because I have so many different experiences and stuff like that, like, there is this idea buzzing in my head that's like, well, maybe I'll become an entrepreneurial coach and I'll work with entrepreneurs to help them improve their businesses since I've already been in their shoes. I don't know. Could open a laundromat. I don't really know. I'm just out here living my life right now.
Really all you have to do, I think it becomes hard. Like I think for me right now, like as I'm going through my freelance phase, it's harder when people are like, so what are you doing? What's next? How are you making money? Like this doesn't make sense to me because it's not that lawyer, doctor, teacher. They don't understand it. And some days I don't understand it, but I'm also not going to let it stress me out because then that's when I'm not going to be able to move forth to understand it. So it's that weird phase of being a freelancer. You're just going with the flow.
But that's the thing, like that's where the magic is. Like because when I was an entrepreneur, entrepreneurship is like you got to have your head in the future and in the present at the same time. Being a freelancer, being in this space that I'm in right now, I get to fully enjoy the present moment. I've never had an opportunity to do that in my life. Even as like a Black American coming from Jamaica, Queens, like you don't have the option to fail. You got to figure this shit out. You got to figure out how you're going to bring in money because most of us don't come from rich parents. We don't have that luxury. So, I mean, I'm in a good space right now. I would say the greatest thing that has happened is that like I am able to like emotionally regulate myself, and I'm also able to like exist in this uncertainty and like be completely okay with it and just surrender to it and trust, like really trust the universe. And I can trust because it's like I've already run a business for 6 years and I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't have any entrepreneurs in my family. Nobody taught me this stuff. I had to learn everything by myself. So I was like, well, damn, if I could do that, imagine who I could become right now with all the knowledge and experience I've already had. It's gonna be lit. It's gonna be lit.
And
So
I
I'm gonna just
think,
take my time.
what'd you say? Sorry.
No, so I'm just gonna take my time with that.
Exactly. And I think going back to what you said about being a Black American and sometimes not having the luxury of being able to just enjoy the present because you're so worried about like the present and the future. I think also there's this question, I think I either saw it on social media or I had an old boss that used to say it, where it's like, are you surviving or are you thriving? And it's like sometimes you're surviving just to like make sure you have enough food to put on the table today and you could pay your bills. But then sometimes you're able to just thrive and really just enjoy the fruits of your labor of like what you've been able to accomplish, but also what you're bringing in now. So that way you don't have to worry about the future. So it's that question sometimes of like knowing what phase of life you may be in.
Yeah, and like, but also like honoring that because it's like that's not a linear thing. It's literally like I really think we're just all plants. Like trees don't grow linearly. it's not like you wake up every morning and you just measure it every single day and all of a sudden it's like growing an inch per day. It's literally not like that, right? It's like it's such a slow process that one day you wake up and you're like, whoa, where did all these petals come from?
Or sometimes you just don't even realize the growth until you take the time to like let's say you move into a house, you take a picture of the house, and then like a year later you take a picture of the same house, and you're like, this tree wasn't there when I first moved in. Now there's this big oak tree here. So it's like it's sometimes even taking time to just look back at how far you've come to where you are now to see, wow, like I've accomplished so much, I've done so much. Like, let me take a chill pill on myself and realize that it's okay that I'm not there yet. I'm getting there and I'm figuring it out. And really just closing out the outside world to know, like, this is enough for me and I'm doing what makes me feel good. And as long as you're good and you're not hurting anybody, what's the problem?
Exactly. Water your plant anyway. Even if you don't see the growth, like you got to keep watering it.
No, it's facts. Like this is so first American problems. Me and my friend were doing a challenge where we're like, we're not a challenge, we're trying to like get our life more together. And so we're like doing our skincare routines and things like that and figuring out like what works for us, everything's like that. And when I went to Barbados, so many people were like, oh my God, your skin looks so good, your skin looks so good. And I didn't notice it. I'm just like, really? Because I've just been doing the skincare routine morning and night and I didn't even notice any difference. And they're like, no, it looks amazing. And I'm like, this is just a month of me doing a skincare routine. So imagine where I could be a year from now. So
Yeah,
it's just little things like that.
exactly. And you're just existing like a plant. A plant just exists. They get their water and they just exist. I'm just trying to be right now.
Oh, I'm looking at my plants now, like exist, exist. Let me be a plant,
I'm just trying to be. That's the vibe I'm on.
girl. I'm with you on that. Um, so looking back at to what Grillz and Granola was and what you were able to accomplish, what's one lesson you learned from running the business?
One lesson I learned is that I feel like this is kind of something that Alicia Keys said was that like life it doesn't life gives you what you believe, basically. Right? Like if you really believe in an idea and you align your actions to your belief, regardless of how much time it takes, it usually will all come through. But you also have to like in that process, you have to honor the twists and turns of it all. So like one thing like if I could go back and do it differently, I would invest more in marketing. I would because like I'm not a marketer. That's just not my area of expertise, but I can build a bomb experience. Um, and I think that that was just an opportunity for me to stretch myself even more outside of my comfort zone and lean on people that have that expertise. Um, but what was I trying to say? I'm sorry, I'm like blanking a little bit because I think my cold medicine is starting to wear off.
You're
But yeah,
fine.
like life gives you what you believe. But a part of that belief is also you meeting the universe halfway, which is coming outside of your comfort zone and still believing in like the long-term vision that you have. Yeah. No one
And
teaches you that. That's something that most people either have it or they don't.
And I think that goes back to the question I asked you earlier when I said, how did you say motivated? And you said, I didn't say motivated, I say disciplined. So I think like you were showing the universe, like, look, I believe in this. Even on the days when I don't have anything to give, I'm still here. I'm still showing up. I believe that this could be successful. I believe in the community this is building. I believe in the impact. And so that showed the universe, like, okay, let's give her this. Let's give her the Google. Let's give her the Target. Let's give her this. Let's give her the community, the people, the grants. So I think like from that you showed the universe like, okay, this is what I need. And it's ironic you say that you wish you or not you wish, but one thing you would do differently is having a marketing team. I was going to ask you, did you consider growing the team before you guys decided to dissolve it? Because it just seemed like that was the one, maybe like what I'm getting from you, what I learned in the short period like of our interview is that you know your strengths and you know your weaknesses and you hired out for the weaknesses that like you weren't the best at. And it just seemed like all you needed was probably a marketing person to like help market the
Yeah.
the business more. Did you guys consider that before, or was it just you guys are too burnt out to like we don't even have time, like we just gotta end this now?
Yeah. It was considered, but then we were just burnt out. And I when I tell you I had nothing left in me, like Well, my grandfather passed, and at the same time, my grandmother got sick, and I was like helping taking care of her. Like I had nothing left in the arsenal. Yeah.
I definitely get that. And
Yeah.
I think that is where the hard parts of being a business owner comes in. It's what does taking time off look for me? Because there's one thing I think to take care of your mental health and like, okay, I'm gonna go get a massage or I'm gonna like take a self-care day for myself. But it's also like I need to take 2 weeks off from this, but who's gonna take care of this? And it's like yes, you have your business partner, but she may also have her own thing going on. So it's like, how do you take a break from the business? I know when I just went on my trip, I was like, should I take my laptop with me? Should I not? Because if I work for someone else, it's I'm leaving the laptop at home. I'm
Hmm.
off. But like as a business owner, it's harder because it's like you run everything or you have such a small team that they need to ask you a question or get to you. So it's how do you take the break from the business to like not be in the business, you know?
Yeah, and it's hard to take the break because even when you're on the break, you're thinking about the business, and then that means that you don't get to be fully present.
Don't. You
You never
don't.
get to be fully present running a business, and I want to experience my life and be immersed in it. And now, now I don't even know how to describe myself to people. Like I live in LA now. I moved across the country by
Yeah.
myself, and I'm like, I don't know how to introduce myself, but I don't want to lead with everything that I've done in my past.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Which I hate that part of networking where it's like, so what do you do? And especially a place like LA. I'm sorry, I have my dislikes to LA, and I feel like LA is just a place where it's really like, what do you do? Because I need to know if I want to align myself with you. So it's also like, how do I give my elevator speech of this is who I am and this is what I'm becoming to help someone better understand me?
Yeah. Yeah, like literally that is LA. And I'm like, I there's nothing I can offer you right now except for my presence. And if that's not enough, then hey, we don't need to be friends.
No, and that's been like my motto right now is you know what, this is who I am, this is where I am right now, and that's all I have to give. Not that I should be giving, like it's relationships are a two-way street. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So shifting into the mental health questions, ooh, okay, we kind of answered this question too, but I'm gonna ask it anyway. So I feel like you do what you need to do or take what you need in certain phases of your life, which Grillz and Granola was what you needed in that phase of your life. How do you practice self-care and how has your self-care evolved from like your time of your divorce to now to where you are today?
My self-care, it's way more still than it's ever been. So I meditate like every single day. I've meditated for like 30,000 minutes over the past 4 years. I got certified as a meditation instructor because I just love it so much. That's one. Two, I paint. Like I started learning how to paint, and I've just been like, that's just been something that's been filling me up lately. And then the third one is like, I really appreciate a good walk now. Like I think being in LA and just being surrounded by the nature, I've never appreciated the outside as much as I have. Because in New York it's dirty, it's loud, it stinks, it's humid. But in LA it's like it's pretty peaceful vibe. So like just taking a walk really helps me now.
And I think living in LA may be a part of your evolvement right now because you have like a different perspective on life.
Yeah, 100%. Like LA, makes me appreciate nature. It makes me appreciate the mountains, the beach, and it also makes me appreciate pizza more because
Wait,
it sucks
what?
over there.
Because it's
Because
what?
the pizza in LA sucks.
Oh, I was gonna say, wait, LA pizza is better than New York? Because I don't know about that,
Never.
but now, okay, now that makes sense. Okay, so I know you said you switched like your paths in grad school, but how are you managing working full time in grad school for your mental
Um,
health, at least?
it's much better. When I was doing the mental health counseling program, I was in school full time and working full time, and it was bad. Like my mental health was really poor. But this new program, it's part time, so like I just feel lighter. Again,
Yeah,
teach them. I'm teaching. I'm learning how to slow down. Like I didn't.
yeah,
I've always been a
yeah.
yeah.
I think it's so many different challenges. I think it's like the pressures of people saying like you need to be here by this point in your life, and then it's also like I need to get it done. Or you see someone like, oh, I did my grad school in 1 year, or I did this, so it's just like, okay, let me hurry up and get it done. But it's like you'll get there when you get there. Like it's you're at least you took the first step of doing it. Cause I know some people who are still like, I think I want to go to grad school. I don't, and it's been 2 years, and it's like, are you going or are you not? Which one is it?
Yeah.
Because time is passing. So you get there when you get there. Because of all the things we know about health and wellness, it could be a daunting space for some that maybe like, didn't grow up playing a sport, or maybe they don't have the education of how to like properly or safely work out. What advice would you give to someone that's looking to step into the wellness space but don't know where to start, or maybe they have started but they've gotten discouraged?
Um, well, two things. One, I always think when it comes to movement, go back to what you loved doing when you were a kid. So like if you loved jumping rope when you were a child, start jumping rope. Let that be your gateway. Like go return to the childhood happy version of you in terms of movement. Um, and then the second piece of advice I would give them is like, don't look at the scale. Focus on how you feel and not how you look. The look will come. It'll come, but focus on how you feel. And also give yourself compassion and grace for just showing up. Just showing up. I've gone to the gym where there are days where I've gone to the gym and I literally have just walked on the treadmill for like 15 minutes and left. And to me, I'm like, it doesn't matter because I still got up and I moved my body. I went to the gym. That was my intention. I did it. I'm not going to sit here and be hard on myself because I didn't burn like 1,000 calories. Like, because that's not why I'm doing it. I'm doing it to feel better.
You're doing it
Yeah.
to chase like that feeling of euphoria, like that feeling you get the high of it.
Yeah, and then also with the exercise, as you continue to feel better, you start to realize that you have so much more power over your emotions than you actually know just by choosing to show up to a gym and walk on a treadmill for 15 minutes. You have the power.
Facts, big facts. Because some days I don't feel like being in there. So Grillz and Granola was built to make a culturally. So I'm reading a little bit of your mission statement. It was built to make a culturally attuned fitness experience available to underrepresented women of color. Being that Grillz and Granolas doesn't exist, and I'm not saying that there aren't other fitness organizations that also may like replicate or be something that is a community for women of color. But I'm saying because Grillz and Granola doesn't exist anymore, what improvements do you think could still be made in the fitness industry to continue the mission that Grillz and Granola had?
Wow, that is like an amazing question. Okay. What improvements could be made? One, I think that it's important to have instructors that reflect like what the US population looks like. So like while I can say like, yeah, I'm not as fit as I used to be, but like I always try to be intentional about like finding and hiring instructors that look like regular schmegular women. And I'm always try to be mindful of even just how our instructors dress. Like, just wear a t-shirt, just it doesn't have to be sports bra and booty shorts because that can intimidate people. I think another improvement that could be made is like taking cueing seriously. So like actually cueing a person to like do movement and stuff like that and providing modifications without people asking. So that requires a lot of like social listening and actually being present and paying attention to how folks are moving. And then the last one is just that as starting to take more fitness classes all over again, we don't stretch enough. We don't stretch enough. And it's like, how are you going to make me do this intense workout and you're not going to stretch me out? Yeah.
You saw my reaction. I 1,000% agree. I think that was something that I had to learn the hard way in my fitness journey because I started off taking like a lot of fitness classes, and then I got comfortable like working on my own. But then like I hurt like I think like my hip or something with it just felt strained. And so I asked one of my friends and she's like, "Well, are you stretching?" And I'm like, "No." And she's like, "Well, you need to stretch before and after your workout." And I'm
Yep.
like, "Oh, so for someone who wasn't, I didn't do any sports. I wasn't educated really on sports or working out besides the one gym class we took the freshman year of high school. So it's like, I didn't know that. And the little 2-second stretch we do in class, what's that going to do for me?" So I agree with you. I agree with you on all of it, but especially that last one, because I think there was something you said earlier, and I meant to say this when you said it was recovery is not talked enough in like your fitness journey. Like going to get massages, knowing that a walk can suffice as like a recovery method, or like making sure you do like dedicated stretching. Even if you have a personal trainer, still do a stretch, because
Mhm.
I have a personal trainer, and sometimes we do like a very modified stretch version. So it's just stretch, stretch, stretch. I can't stress that enough.
Stretch, yes.
Yeah, yeah. I definitely agree. So now we're winding down and we're going into some fun questions.
Okay.
Who are people in the wellness space that inspire you?
Oh, people that inspire me. It's kind of no, it's a little biased, but I'm really inspired by my business partner, Jenny Mack, because she has this thing called the Eat School, and she's a lupus warrior, and she's literally teaching women of color how to heal their bodies and heal themselves with food. And she's really passionate about it. And she has me eat it healthier. Like I remember I told her, I was like, oh, I keep my body, like my stomach keeps on hurting, and like I don't know what to do, my digestive tract is jacked up. And she's like, no, you need to eat seeds. You need to do this. You need to do that. And sure enough, I do it and it works. So like that's one person that I'm inspired by. Who else? Who else? Dun, dun, dun. Okay, that's all I can think of right now.
That's fine. That's fine. I love that. I think that attaches back to what you said earlier about community and making sure that the people in your community, can fill up your cup. What's your go-to workout?
Ooh, so right now my go-to workout is HIIT. I am a HIIT girl through and through. I love it. I love HIIT because I like switching my movement every few minutes, and I like the challenge of like pulling a sled and pushing a sled, and the next thing you know I'm doing box jumps. Like I like the switch up, and I burn a lot, and I feel the difference like quickly.
Hit will help you burn a lot of calories fast. And like you said, I think for somebody who gets bored doing like the same movement over and over, like 4 sets, it helps to keep you like attentive and like aware of what you're
Mhm.
doing.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if I want to ask you this question. I'm gonna ask it to you anyway, because you said you don't like trap music anymore. Are you like you don't listen to it as much? My last question was, what's your go-to trap song at the moment?
Ooh. Okay. Right now it's called What Kind of by Libra Jolie.
Oh, really? I haven't heard of that. I'm gonna look that up. Maybe I have, because sometimes like when you're listening to a song but you don't know the name of it or the artist who sings it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna look that up later.
Yeah.
Closing out questions. Is there any questions that I didn't ask or anything that you want to say before we close out?
No, I think your questions were incredible. These were like actually some of the best questions I've been asked in a long time. I was like, oh, I got to go deep in my brain for these.
Yay, good. That makes me happy. What is your social handles for anyone that wants to connect with you?
It's at CC Chavonne. So it's CCCHAVONNE.
And her handle will be in the show notes. So if you guys missed that, it will be down in the show notes so you can click it. But Chavonne, I appreciate you so much for taking the time to do this interview. I think like you filled my cup up a lot. You just like it gave me a better understanding of your business and like, everything you're able to accomplish. I sadly only was able to go to like 2 of your courses. And then the next thing I know, I see it's like it's closing. And so I was just like, what? But still, I'm excited to see like what you will do next, because I think like hearing your story and like everything you've been able to accomplish, I know like whatever is next for you will be amazing, and anywhere I can support, I'm happy to like be there.
Thank you so much. And this is like an early birthday gift. My birthday's in 2 days. And like I actually haven't had an opportunity to reflect in this way. So thank you, because it's actually like boosting me up, because I was like, whoa, I didn't even I don't think about how much I've done and like how far I've come and how much I've learned about myself. So thank you for just like opening up this space in me. I feel activated, like
Yay.
truly.
That makes me feel happy. I think like for me, birthdays are definitely a good time to reflect and just like think of like everything you've accomplished over the past year. Cause I think that's something we don't do enough in society is reflect. What have I
Yeah.
done? And just like not even reflect in the sense of like just reflect on how far you come, because you need that sometimes for yourself.
Yeah, you're an excellent interviewer.
Oh my God, thank you. Thank you so much for being on today. Thank